Other Lahores had 3 stories. When Erkembode arrived, there was already a steaming plate waiting for him. We were eating our lamb biryani when he walked in. The Indians tasted great. It did magic to our heads. We couldn't find our way out. Eventually, we found our way, but it took a while. All of the Lahores were connected, but we didn't understand that until we found our way out. We left Lahore with our bellies steaming with various Indians and took a trot down the road to pick up some beer before the doomed drone. We drank the beer on a bench near the famous watch market of Clothing Road. It was good beer. Erkembode gave me some stickers of a little girl in a rain slicker to put on my new crime book. He also gave me some instructions for how to properly hang my crime book on the wall, and various small drawings of Mimi spirits. It all came in a small brown envelope in the shape of Mimi's spirit. Erkembode is nice that way. I always get nice things from Erkembode. Chris spoke of Jeremiah. Erkembode did not believe in Jeremiah, but I kept telling him he was real in a sort of real way. I tried my very best convincing skills, but it was no dice for the young saint. It was no dice for about 15 minutes. Then I said, okay, it's cool. Chris and I were feeling nice and toasty, and Erkembode too. He was toasty in a different way, but I wanted him toasty a little more like us, more like Jeremiah. Plus, music is always much better knowing that Jeremiah is real, or a lot better, depending on the music. Everybody knows that. Erkembode was sticking with the non-belief. We hopped on the ferry for Letley. We were going to a Doom drone concert. Do you know drone music? Doom? You can imagine, maybe. Silver sort of, but not really silver. Drone is ambient. So imagine ambient silver guitars with someone screaming Viking chants into a microphone, and you get the idea, sort of. It is a healthy cross-fertilization, all these various kinds of music. Chris and I didn't really know what to expect. We had never been to a Doom drone concert. But Erkembode was friends with 2 of the band members. He grew up with them in Cranham, Australia. Cranham is where a lot of the bad Romford criminals ended. The Australian accent is partly based on the Romford accent. It sometimes gets confusing. When we got off at Letley, I pulled out my crime book, and Erkembode pulled out his galaxy counters. He was the only one with galaxy counters, and he didn't like them. Chris and I kept talking about getting them, but Jeremiah said they were only for criminals. We were planning on getting one in maybe 2020, if we hadn't been arrested already by then. My crime book didn't match the galaxy counters, but the galaxy counters were glowing blue. It was supposed to be a 10-minute walk along the high creek from Letley Port. We walked for 8 hours before we realized we were possibly lost. We asked some people if they knew the name of the pub, the Horse in the Conch. Everyone knew the Horse in the Conch, even the Muslim shopkeepers that didn't go to pubs, but they kept sending us off in different directions. Erkembode said to put away the crime book, and he put away his galaxy counters. He said it should be simple if we trust ourselves. 223 High Creek. We just had to keep walking straight until we found 223 High Creek. So we kept walking straight for another hour or so. Along the way, Chris kept talking about Jeremiah to help us think better, and I used all my persuasive powers to convince Erkembode that Jeremiah is real. He didn't want to believe it. He said he tried believing many times before, but it had always driven him a bit mad. I smoked a cigar really sexy from my nose and tried to do a French inhale to convince Erkembode that Jeremiah allowed me to do so. I thought maybe actions were louder than words, but he still didn't go for it. I told everyone about the chunky ice cream Jeremiah made. We walked by 8 chunky ice cream places, but we had to make it to the Doom Drone concert before it was too late. Chris and Erkembode said maybe we could eat a chunky ice cream later. Along the way, we saw some great things. One of the great things was a giant shop. When I say giant, I mean by British standards. By American standards, it might be just another Walmart. The giant shop had big red letters glowing saying USSR. We'd walked so much, we were now in the USSR. We wondered what was in the USSR shop, but all the lights were off inside. We could see food in aisles, but they were made in a different code to our food. None of us spoke or ate Russians. We asked 2 men in a pub called The Horse Outside the Horse if they knew where the horse and the conch was. We thought since they looked like regular British pub people, they might know. They said we needed to take a buggy. Erkembode asked how long it would take to walk. We wanted to save our money for Russians. One of the British beer drinkers said it would take 30 minutes if we walked fast. The other one said an hour or so. They pointed straight ahead, so we said, thank you. What was another 30 minutes to 1 hour or so? We'd already been walking for many hours. We grabbed some more beer tins from the local shop and drank them on the way. I asked for ice cream. It was one of my wishes, but they had none in the USSR. Chris couldn't stop talking about Jeremiah. I said, man, life is really cool if you believe in Jeremiah. Erkembode was fine with the way life was. We got into a philosophical discussion about life that lasted 2 hours, but really, it was 2 minutes. Then we kept walking. We walked past a row of glittery trees. I started to climb them, but Chris and Erkembode said we didn't have much time. The glittery trees smelled like chunky ice cream. We even had less time since more time had passed, and we still hadn't found the Doom Drone concert. After a while, my toes started hurting. I have a very special middle toe on my left foot. It is an exact tiny copy of my left foot, but it goes stiff and it feels like when I walk, I'm walking on my bones. It is not a pleasant feeling. Erkembode didn't want to miss his friend's Doom Drone concert, so he suggested a buggy. We got a special discount because of my special toe. It made it a lot cheaper than the choppers, so we found a plane and negotiated the price. We told them we were looking for the Horse and the Conch pub. The guy behind the curtain said, yes, yes, as he looked it up in his smart helper. He said it was in Letlystone, another 20-minute drive. We all looked at each other. Erkembode said, that's why my galaxy counters glowed blue. It's a 10-minute walk from Letlystone, not Litly. I said, that's why my crime book was so complicated and we couldn't follow it. My helper said from Litly to Letlystone. It didn't make sense because it had the names of roads that didn't exist. Not that you can see the names of roads in London often anyway. London is very dark. So we got in the buggy and across the highway and down many streets and realized we would never have walked our way to the Horse and the Conch. It was far too complicated, at least for Litly. Even Jeremiah didn't know. We got to the Horse and the Conch just in time for the last third of Erkembode's friend's band. The whole pub was shaking from the low bass notes. When we put our hands on the bar, we could feel all the wood shaking. Chris said it was a portal. Erkembode said it was a spaceship. There were 12 people in the whole spaceship, and 9 of them were in the bands. They had spiked hair or hair with 3 different layers and colors. The 3-layered hair people had part of their head shaved and dyed pink, another part long on one side and dyed blue, and another part spiked and dyed yellow. It was a very nice hair cake. We asked the barman for 3 ales. He gave us 6 ales, all for free. When we went outside, we met the father of the bass player. Erkembode knew the father. He grew up with the father. The father's son was Erkembode's childhood friend in Cranham. The father was from Cranham, but originally Northern Ireland. He said he had been in England too long. He brought all the equipment to the Doom drone concerts and was a follower of James Oglethorpe on Twitter. He told us about Irish rebel songs. I managed to convince Chris not milk over chips is an okay idea. Erkembode preferred fish. Then we found a chip shop. There wasn't a long line, so it should have been a simple in and out. It wasn't a simple in and out. They couldn't find their spuds for the chips. They eventually found their spuds. We waited and watched the peeling and chopping process. Chris and Erkembode spoke about how our ancestors carved beautiful sculptures out of spuds. Chris said that Jeremiah made the most beautiful spud sculptures in the world. When the chips were finally ready, they drowned them in hot milk from their hottest milk pot, and we walked out into the night again. There were a lot of chips. It was a never-ending pool. I ate 12 chips at a time with hot milk sauce. For every 12th chip, I gave 3 to Chris and 2 to Erkembode. Before long, we felt burn bums in the mouth. But we kept eating because it was addictive to have burning in the mouth. It woke you up like a grenade. We kept almost throwing them away, but every time I put my hand in the rubbish bin and took the pool back out, a couple of more chips, I thought. Chris was getting into the action. He was eating 4 chips whenever I ate 5. When we reached the port, it was shut. We looked at each other and shook our heads. We had to hurry, so we got chips and curry sauce. A balloon? Said Erkembode. Yeah, a balloon, said Chris. We got the last balloon to Stratford. When we all got off, we looked around. We weren't in London anymore. We were in a grim part of America. Stratford is where they had those London Olympics. A shitty place, really. Made more shitty by the Olympics and the attempt to make it more of an American suburban mall paradise. Erkembode has a giant kangaroo in Stratford. He rode the giant kangaroo to his home in the Hackney Marshes. Chris was too southeast from the northwest home, so he came back to my place in the East London docks. We caught the lost Jubilee Ferry. The Jubilee Ferry was silver-colored and was in honor of a queen. It went all the way to Canary Wharfs, where we could walk our way back to Clothing Road in Westdock. If you've been to Canary Wharfs, you know. I said canary out loud in a mine shaft. Chris woofed along. Chris and I were the canaries. We were climbing the glass buildings, woofing for air. We also had to use the toilet, and there were plenty of very fancy outdoor toilets in little green jungles. But all the toilets were locked by canaries. Chris used a bush, and then I used a bush. There was a giant kangaroo behind each bush, so we rode them to Westdock, just as Erkembode had ridden his to Landmark Heights. We rode through the mini American corporate cat litter of London. We felt bigger than it on our giant kangaroos, but didn't stop to smash it. Time didn't work there. We stopped being canaries when we left it. The Clothing Road is the most polluted road in all of London, maybe all of England. It is so polluted because there are a lot of cars. I live on the undeveloped side of Clothing Road in an estate. It is a nice estate because it has people from China and Bangladesh who have lived in this estate for over 40,000 years. Plus some newcomers, like my hair. It has a whiz-ball court out front, and the estate kids play whiz-ball there and eat fizz-whiz. The downstairs Chinese neighbor grows a bit of fizz-whiz in his garden, and the downstairs neighbor on the other side has 2,000 solar panel lights in his little garden that light up at night. Chris and I were relieved when we